Hi, my name is Thomas Geesbrecht, and in this video I'll show you how to build a low-code app using DOM data. Let's immediately jump into it by deploying a catalog package that will contain our DOM model. So that way we don't have to set up our model, we just want to create our low-code app. So we can go to the catalog.dataminer.services and look for DOM vehicles demo. When you find it, you can click on the deploy button and deploy it to your system. To check whether the deployment went correctly, you can look for the Empower DOM Vehicles low-code app on the web page. And that should kind of look like this. This is kind of an example of what we want to create ourselves from scratch. So I'm currently deploying the package to my DataMiner service, and once the deployment is successful, as you can see right here, we can go to the home page of our DataMiner agents and let's check if the deployment was successful. And that seems to be the case. So we see the Empower DOM Vehicles application, and that's kind of the reference app. Let's now create our own. So you can click on the plus button over here, and let's give it a name. So let's call it Vehicle Manager. There we go, so we have given it a name. We can now also adjust the icon and color and so forth. So by clicking this little top icon here, let's pick like a dark red color. And I believe there should be a truck icon as well. There we go. Once you have chosen that, you can click on the top left again, and that will close and get us back to the main view. So we want to visualize our vehicles, so let's create a vehicles page for that. So we already have like the default or starter page. Let's rename it to vehicles. And you can also have an icon. Do we have a car icon maybe? Yes, there we go. Just to have something different than the truck. Now, let's visualize our vehicles. So we have, using that catalog package, deployed a DOM model, and that also includes a bunch of DOM instances that represent our vehicles. We now want to display those vehicles in a table. So let's go to the list of components. So this is this little bar here with the plus. In the search for table, and it's the one on the right here without the colors. Drag and drop it on the canvas, and you can increase the size a little bit as well. So it asks us to add data to this table. On the right, we have a bunch of kind of sources where we can add data from, and you will actually see an Object Manager instances bar here, but that only allows you to kind of select a single instance. We actually want to show a list of instances. And with that, we can use the queries. So this is actually a GQI query that we can create to get all DOM instances, all vehicles from DataMiner. So let's click the plus here to create a new one, and let's give it a name, all vehicles. Then we select the data source, and this should be get object manager instances. The module, which is Empower Vehicle Demo. We then have like a list of all the DOM definitions that are part of our module, but we only have the vehicles to select here. And that's pretty much it. We can even have like a little select operator, and then say, I don't want the name, I just want the license plate, location, size, and number of cameras. So now we have completed our query, and we can drag and drop that onto the table by clicking here, all vehicles, and drag and dropping this on the table. And there we go. We can see all the vehicles that are part of the vehicles DOM definition. That's a very basic way of displaying them, but we also want to do a little bit extra. We want to actually kind of filter on them. To do so, you can actually create a query filter. There we go. So we can find this in the components as well. Drag and drop this on the canvas again. Increase the size a little bit, so it all fits nicely on the page. And instead of kind of feeding the instances, the vehicles on the table itself, we're first going to feed them on the query filter. And then we're going to feed the output of this query filter on the table. But we already have a feed here. So if you click on it and click on the data part, you'll see that we already have a feed selected or kind of linked, which is all the vehicles from the GQI query. You can remove this again. And then when you click on add data and scroll up, we will see the component section kind of being in a lighter color or like in a darker color. You can open this one up, query filter, and then queries. You can drag that on the canvas. So now instead of linking the GQI query directly to the table, you actually feed it to the query filter, and the query filter then feeds the filtered result, kind of the additional filters, to the table. And that way, you can actually filter on the instances. Let's have a view here. Let's check it out by clicking on Preview Draft here at the top right. And that will kind of show you the current state of our application. So we have all the vehicles here, and then we have the filtering pane on the left. If we, for example, select USA, we will only see the vehicles that are currently located in the USA. So this is a very nice out-of-the-box functionality to do filtering. So yeah, that looks fine. Let's edit our low-code app again. And we want to extend the current functionality with being able to add these vehicles as well. So we need a button to open up a panel. And the panel is kind of a separate page that we will use to display our form components. So first, let's add a button. You can do it in two ways. You can like search for a button here and drag and drop a button component. But what, in my opinion, is much nicer is using the header bar. So here in this kind of section, you can enable the header bar, and you can click on the plus icon here. And that will add like a nice little kind of button, header button, which we will use to add vehicle. So let's call this one add vehicle. And then for the icon, there should be like a plus here. And let's also add one to refresh the page. So you can again click the plus, call the label refresh. And I believe, yeah, there should be a refresh icon here as well. Okay, we have defined these two buttons, but we currently do not have anything linked to it. So when you click on it, nothing will happen. So for the refresh, let's first do that one. So make sure you have selected the refresh button, and then in the event section here, you can configure the on click. So when you click on the button, we want to execute a component action. Since we want to kind of refresh the list of vehicles, so we want to say to the table, hey, you should refresh your list of vehicles. So let's execute a component action. So execute the action on the component. I want to fetch the data of table 1. If you have multiple tables, you will have like a drop down with other tables here as well. But since we only have one, we can see this one table. And then click OK. That's it. We have now configured our refresh. Perfect. Now configure our second button, which is add vehicle. And for this, we need to open a panel, but we currently do not have a panel yet, so we can't configure it. So let's create a panel. For this, you can find the panel section here. So under the header bar section, we have the panel section, and let's create a panel. If you create that up, you can see that the canvas is clear since we are going to create that panel, and let's give it the name add vehicle panel. There we go. Make sure the header bar is configured again, since we'll use that. And on this panel, we want to visualize the form component. So we want to be able to enter the values for our DOM instances. And we then also want to save it to the database. So first of all, let's drag and drop the form components. So you can again open up that thing, drag the form components, and let's use the full screen space for this. Now we need to add data again. And in this case, we need to use the object manager definitions. So here on the right, you will see the instances and definitions. If you open up the definitions, you'll see our Empower Vehicles demo module. And if you open that one up, we will have the vehicles DOM definition. So we can just drag that on the canvas. And by doing that, you will actually say, hey, form components, I have a definition here, and you should kind of show the fields for that definition. And that way we see all the fields for our definition, and we can also enter data here. But once you have entered data, yeah, what do you need to do then? That's where we will create a button for again. So let's again use the header bar here at the top. Let's click the plus, and let's call it create, or maybe let's call it save. That makes a little bit more sense. And the icon, we can make it the save icon, this little diskette. And then events, just like on the main page, we can now configure the action for that. And here we'll again execute a component action. I want to, of this form, save current changes. So that will say to the form, hey, form, all the changes that you currently have, save that. And since it's in new instance modus, since we have drag and dropped the definition on there, it will save our instance for us. And again, it will automatically configure the form once since we only have one. That's not it, because what will happen is we fill everything in, we click the button, it will be saved, but then we can still see it and we still have our panel. We want to do a few more things. So we want to close the panel. So upon completion, you can execute or close a panel, this panel, and then once the panel is closed, we also want to refresh the list of vehicles. Since we create a new one, we want to make sure that we can actually see it. So let's execute the component action and then choose the fetch the data option here. There we go, and that's it. If you don't want to kind of save it, you've just opened up that window by accident, we also want a way to close it. And there's a nice little trick here. If you go to the right, you can also add header buttons. And if you add one, but do not give it a name, but just like a close icon, this one, and then the events, you can say close a panel, this panel, okay. And then now you have like a nice little X in the right corner that you can use to close a panel. All right, so that's pretty much it. We have to find the form, we have to find the save button, and also a close one. So let's go back to the main page by clicking the back arrow here. And then we can configure the action for our add vehicle button. So again, click on it, make sure it's selected, go to events, on click, and then we can say open a panel. And since we again have only one panel, it will be already selected for you. And here we have a few options. So we can say in a pop-up or on the left of the page. So this will like be a left bar that will pop up from the left or kind of slide from the left or on from the right. I actually like this on the left to have like creates on the left and edits on the right. So let's pick that one. You can also choose how wide that bar is. Let's increase this to 40 and then click on OK. So that's it. We should have configured all the basic actions and all the things that we need to create another vehicle. So let's try it out again by clicking the little eye icon here, the preview draft. If we now click on the refresh, you can see like quickly a small loading indicator which reloads the page. And let's try out the add vehicle. So if we click it, we can see this kind of bar popping up from the left. With our form, we have a license plate ABC123. It's located in the UK. It has these capabilities. It's a extra large truck and it has support for 12 cameras. And if we click on save, the page will close and we will also see that the table has refreshed and we should see our ABC123 vehicle right over here. So everything works as expected. So we're currently at a point where we can view our instances, our vehicles. We can add a new one, but now we still need to add the functionality to edit one. So if you kind of click on a vehicle, that you can edit that vehicle. So let's add that as well. Let's click on the Edit Vehicle Manager button here again, so we can add a new panel. So just like the add functionality, we also have edit functionality, and we can use a panel for that in this case as well. So let's a new panel, edit vehicle panel. And just like the add, we again need to use the form component, but now it will look a little different. Instead of dragging and dropping a definition, we're actually going to feed a value to it. And feeding, I've already kind of used that word a little bit, but it's where one component kind of exposes a value which can then be picked up by another. Since we want to show the instance that was selected by the table, we need to feed a value from the table to this form. But before we can actually do that, we first need to select a value there. So let's first go back again and make sure a value is selected. So in my case, it already was like that, but if you hadn't clicked a value yet, make sure to click one so it's highlighted. And then we can go back to our edit vehicle panel. Now when we click on this kind of data icon here, you'll see that the components is again lighting up, and it's saying that on our vehicles page we have a table, and I can feed the object manager instances of that table. So that's actually the ID of the DOM instance which was selected in that table. So you can click and drag this on the form component, and then you can see, if I click out of this, that this kind of contains now the values of that instance. Now we can view it, but now we also want to be able to edit it, which actually is the case. So you can actually change the value here, but you have no way to kind of save it right now. For this, we need to add another button. So let's add a save button again. We can again use the same icon. And then for the events, just like the previous one, we want to execute a component action. We'll tell the form component, hey, save your current instances. Do that for the edit form. So make sure to check the names of the panels, since you can also do actions cross-panel. So you want to do it on the edit panel. Now, upon completion, we want to close a panel, this panel, and then also execute a component action to refresh the table again. So again, it will be table 1 on our main page. So that way, when we have edited the instance, we have edited, for example, the license plate, that way the updated license plate will also be shown in the table. So click OK, and that's it. And the same here, we can add like a close button as well. So add a close icon, and then for the events, you can choose close a panel, and then this panel, which is default, and that's it. So let's kind of try it out. But before we can actually do that, we need to be able to open this panel. And there's actually a few ways to do that. You can configure a action when you double click on a row. So on the table, there's a configuration for that. Or you can even use table templates. That's already a bit more advanced, but let's use the basic functionality and use a double click feature. So when you click on the table, you'll see that you have settings here, and then you have a on double click action. Let's configure the actions for that. So when a user double clicks on a certain row, we want to open a panel and the edit vehicle panel. And here we can choose on the right, and let's also make this 40 so it's uniform with the other one. And that's it. Let's click OK. And now let's preview it and try it out. If I double click on one of these vehicles, for example, this BJD vehicle, the right bar opens up as expected, and it displays all the data from that vehicle that we wanted to see. And you can actually change the license plate here as well. So for example, we want to change it to 972HEG, and we save this. It closes the panel, it refreshes the page, and you can see that the 972HEG has also been updated over here. All right, great. Now we can also edit our vehicles. The only thing that remains is to allow the deletion of a vehicle. So let's add a button here as well to delete the vehicle. It's actually quite easy. So again, go into edit mode. Let's open up our edit panel and add another button called delete. We can have a delete icon, this trash can over here, and then the events that you configure can be execute component action. On the form, I want to delete an instance, and then also, just like the save or the edit, we want to again close a panel, this panel, and then also refresh the table using execute component action, fetch the data. So this is exactly the same as the others. When you click OK, let's preview and let's try it out. So we want to delete this ABC one that we initially created. Let's double click it. It correctly opens it as expected. Very nice. And then when you click on delete, it's gone, and it's also gone from the table. So this is entirely behaving as expected. So now you've created like an entire application that will allow you to view your objects, view your DOM instances. Like in our case, they are vehicles, but they can be anything that you want. You can add them, and you can edit them, and you can even delete them. You can earn additional DevOps points with this session by taking a screenshot of your low-code app. So create a DOM instance using the create functionality that you added. Pick some own data, some unique data, a license plate number, something special, and then open it up in the edit panel on the right, so that you have like the right bar, and take a screenshot of this. If you send that in to our team, we will award you additional DevOps points. You can send this in using the assignment section on the Dojo page, or if you're watching on YouTube, you can check out the description. There will be some information there on how to send that screenshot. That was it for building a low-code app with DOM data session. I hope you enjoyed it, and I see you in the next video.